Henry Rollins and Martin Luther King made my life a lot easier. They can make yours easier too. It's AD Roundtree. Hey, you, how's it going? How are you? Welcome to this, your Wednesday edition of the show. Yeah, Wednesday. Excellent job, my friend. You are already halfway through yet another week. This is no small accomplishment. You're doing awesome. Hang in there. You got this. You are a badass. And if you need something, if there's anything I can do for you to make your Wednesday better, hit me up. I'm here with you. I'm here for you. At ADSXE. It's where you can find me on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook at ADSXE. Put it in your phone now in case you need it later. So I took Monday off, Martin Luther King Day off, and I was off yesterday too because I don't know if you can hear it, but I got the ick. I'm sick with something. Don't know exactly what it is. It's amazing to me. If you've been listening to this podcast for a while, you know I started it while I was at my father's bedside in hospitals in Kosovo and Macedonia. And the entire time I was there, I was convinced I was going to get sick. I went there for 3 days. I did not pack for the dead of winter. I was there for a month and a half. And by the time, week 3 or 4 rolled around, it was the dead of winter and I didn't have a jacket. So I was walking to and from hospitals every single day, sometimes in the snow and, in buildings where there were all sorts of patients with all sorts of ailments, including one kind of hospital where my dad had to go to get a blood transfusion that was a COVID hospital specifically. I was like, there's no way I'm getting out of this. That was a real nail biter of a situation because we went to that COVID hospital to get my dad the blood transfusion right before we were about to come back home to America. He had a last minute emergency. All of a sudden he started bleeding internally. I wasn't sure if I was going to be able to get him on a flight. And then the only place we could get him a blood transfusion where they had blood available for him was in this COVID hospital. And I was like, oh, he's going to get COVID. I'm going to get COVID. We're going to fail our tests and we won't be able to get on the plane and I'll be stuck here for another 2 weeks while we quarantine. Fortunately, that did not happen. Miraculously, the entire time I was there, I dodged all manner of illnesses. And then come home. I don't know exactly what is going on. It doesn't feel too serious, but it's definitely something. So I took Martin Luther King Day off because I decided I would do this podcast on work days, Monday through Friday, and I would observe holidays and things like that. And that seemed to work well with you because most of the people that have gotten in touch with me about listening to this podcast say they do it in the car. So hopefully it all works out. But yeah. Who knows how many close calls I had with getting wildly ill while I was hanging out in numerous hospitals halfway around the world in Kosovo and Macedonia, specifically COVID wards. But I managed to skip all that and got a little bit of something here back home in the good old US of A. Whatever the case may be, I'm here now with you. And if you can put up with the scratchiness, well, hang out. Martin Luther King and Henry Rollins made my life easier. How so? Well, I was thinking about this when it was Martin Luther King Day on Monday. And, there's all sorts of things that float around the internet to commemorate the occasion. But I have to tell you, I think my favorite Martin Luther King quote is now and probably always will be and always has been, I've decided to stick with love. Hate is too great a burden to bear. That was something that I remember hearing going all the way back to when I was a little kid. And it didn't really kind of hit me until a little later on in life. First and foremost, hopefully when you're a kid, hate isn't something that's really built into you. It's one of the great tragedies of people that do hate, especially based on differences of ethnicity, color of skin, race, religion, all these things that seem to perpetually divide us. Children, when they are born, know nothing of it. They don't understand it. It makes no sense to them, as it should make no sense to all of us for all of our lives. Yet, it is somehow, somewhere along the way, woefully still learned from somewhere. But that I have decided to stick with love. Hate is too great a burden to bear. Quote from Martin Luther King. I didn't really understand it until, I got to a later point in life. And it was a point in my life where, as is the case today, I was spending an awful lot of time with Henry Rollins. If you're not familiar with Henry Rollins, well, he is on my Mount Rushmore of people for why I do what I do, I suppose. He was a lead singer of an amazing punk rock band called Black Flag. He got that gig by jumping on stage one night at their show, grabbing the mic and singing and blowing the guys in the band away to the point where when they were looking for a new lead singer, they're like, hey, that kid that manages an ice cream store in Washington, D.C., let's see what he's doing. And he carved out this incredible niche for himself, first as the front person for this legendary punk rock band, then as a singer for his own band, and then finally, and still to this day, as a guy who writes and talks a lot. And as someone who has made his living as a talker and as a writer and as someone who was in a band, Henry Rollins was always a bit of a North Star for me when I was thinking how I wanted my life to go. As a teenager, I discovered Black Flag. Or as a teenager, actually, I discovered his spoken word stuff. I'd known about Black Flag since I was a little kid. They were required listening thanks to some of the kids on my school bus. But I really sort of lucked out because, well, you never really know what's going to rub off on you when you're a child. It could be something good, something positive, something that makes you want to go out and get things done and be awesome to other people. Or it could be something negative that makes you fearful of other people and maybe puts you in a place where you're not treating them right. And this can come from anything, anyone. This can come from your peer group. This can come from a group of friends. This could come from an educator, a teacher, a coach, a parent, a relative. The good and the bad seeps in the most unexpected places. And I feel perpetually so lucky that for me, it was folks like Beastie Boys, Henry Rollins, and the guys in the band Bad Brains. Only because there was something about them. There was something powerful and constructive about everything they did. They all made lives for themselves by doing what they wanted to do, by being true to themselves and not really sort of bothering themselves with what trends were going on. All of these bands, all of these musicians, all of these folks lived their own lives on their own terms and made their own music their own way, and it had very little to do with what else was going on. And because of that, it was that much more successful. So I feel super lucky that these are the things that really, really spoke to me and got through to me when I was a kid. And a couple of English teachers and my mom and dad. And, well, I kind of feel like I lucked out when it came to positive influences in my young life that shaped me into someone that wanted to go do stuff that was cool and creative and interesting and wanted to treat people well every step of the way. So I feel fortunate that one of those people was Henry Rollins. And I dove in deep to his spoken word stuff when I was a teenager. I really, really did. And I remember having grown up a little bit and having things that I did hate and maybe starting to feel like there were people that I hated. I remember hearing a quote from Henry Rollins saying like, when you hate someone, it's almost like you're giving them too much of yourself. He said, and this was the analogy he used, if someone tries to hand you a bag of crap, you don't take it. You don't have to take it. You don't have to have the burden of handling that bag of crap. You go, no, F you, man. Thank you very much, but no, I'll be leaving that and you alone. Henry Rollins said, when you hate someone, you're giving them too much of yourself. And that spoke to me. And a weird twist of fate when Henry Rollins said that, when he equated hate to a bag of crap that you don't have to carry if you don't want to, I was reminded of Martin Luther King saying, I've decided to stick with love. Hate is too great a burden to bear. And I was like, oh, they're both saying the same thing, just in very different ways. Interesting. and kind of cool. Right on Henry, right on MLK. I don't want to burden myself. I don't want to weigh myself down. I don't want to spend energy hating. I put that together when I was reasonably young, a teenager. That hate was a burden that was too great to bear. That by hating someone, you were giving them too much of yourself. And I kind of carried that with me. Still do to this day, that if I'm really, really angry at someone, if I really hate someone, if I really have a big problem with someone, it's taking too much out of me. Now, I'm lucky. Only because that seeped in there early and made me realize that it doesn't even have to be hate. Spending energy negatively really kind of takes more from you than anyone else. It really is a burden that you don't need to burden yourself with. And so, as we get a little bit older, as we kind of deal with the slings and arrows of life, as we deal with the ups and downs, and the people that may be a part of those ups and downs, it would be easy to fall victim to, like I said, hate's a strong word, but any kind of negative emotion and any kind of effort that you put into negative emotion. It just takes so much from you. I think now in 2022, we are, as a species, as human beings, not only here in America, but all over the world, expending massive amounts of energy on this. We live in an incredibly argumentative culture, incredibly combative culture, spurred on by the rise of the interwebs. And man, that can suck your life away. No, can't come to bed. Can't get under the covers with the person that I love the most in this world and possibly enjoy sweet bound chicka wow wow loving relations. Someone is wrong on the internet, and I've got to attend to that. This happens a lot to a lot of people, and it makes no sense. So I guess what I would say is Henry Rollins and MLK equally freed me from the burden of spending too much of my life's precious, limited energy on negative things, especially where other people were involved. Of course, it's hard not to get caught up in it. Of course, it's difficult not to lose your temper. Of course, it's tough when someone steps to you and says something awful, not to want to step back or take a step forward and lean into it and go for the jugular. I have been there. I have done it many times. This is not a magic bullet. It doesn't work all the time, but I've come to realize that letting go of things that don't matter and letting go of people treating you negatively and talking to you negatively and wanting to engage negatively is one of the most powerful things you and I could ever do. I see it all the time. I see people, well, you know what really, besides the formative experience with Henry Rollins and Martin Luther King, it really helped me make up my mind on this one. Do you remember there was one weekend? And look, obviously, there's going to come times in your life where you need to debate, where you need to have a spirited debate. There's going to be times in your life where you have to argue your case. But I made a decision after this one fateful weekend that I was never going to engage online. First and foremost, people don't treat each other well online. People are obviously keyboard warriors. People feel like they're emboldened to say and do just ridiculously horrible things to people on the interwebs that they wouldn't say or do if that person was standing there right in front of them. Or at least I hope they wouldn't. Or at least that wouldn't be the first thing that they would say. But you know what helped me make up my mind on that one? There was that one weekend, and maybe you remember it. Maybe you participated in it. There was one weekend where the entirety of the interwebs was consumed with two things: gay marriage and the Confederate flag. Do you remember that? Somehow, both of these things came to a head during the same week. And all weekend long, all people did was argue about gay marriage and the Confederate flag online. It was really something. And I didn't participate just because I was like, I don't see this as being especially productive. But then as I watched it unfold and I watched people argue and argue and argue some more and devote hours and hours and hours. I mean, if you look at all the man hours and woman hours spent around America, keyboard warrioring during that one weekend, it must have been phenomenal. More than enough effort to power the national grid. And it was spent arguing about the Confederate flag and gay marriage, mostly on Facebook. And at the end of it, what had changed? Nothing. Zip, zing, nada. And I'd always sort of for the most part, shied away from arguing online, just because I noticed it was an incredible time suck. But when I saw that, when I saw how much effort was expended on all of this and how little was achieved at the end of it, it really did make me feel like that's it. And I made a rule for myself at the end of that weekend. I was like, not only will I never fight with anybody online, because I won't do it. It seems pointless and stupid, but I made a decision that I will never even disagree with people online. Because I've never once seen something like that go down where the other person said, oh yeah, you know what? Now you put it that way. I completely see the error of my ways and my point of view, and thank you for showing me the light. Never really seen that happen on the interwebs. Never really seen that display of humility and humanity happen on Zuckerberg's toy. So, yeah, I made that decision. I will no longer fight. And I will no longer disagree with people on the internet because I don't think it goes anywhere. And that was years ago. I don't remember how many years ago, but it was a long time ago. And it served me well ever since. And it's gotten me hours and hours and hours of my life back. I now have hours and hours and hours to do other things that I want to do on the interwebs other than argue with people, which is great. And when I add it up over the course of a year, it's really significant. When I add it up over the course of many years, it's even more significant. And you, me, all of us, we can all have that. We can all have that if we just realize, like Henry Rollins said, when you hate something, when you hate someone, you are giving them too much of yourself. It's like a bag of poop that you're being asked to carry around. There's zero reason why you would do that. So don't. I mean, maybe you get something out of it. I don't know. I can't speak for you on that, but I don't. And I can't imagine that you do. And I've decided to stick with love. Hate is too great a burden to bear. That is it for me. Thank you so much for hanging out. Thank you for being a part of my radio family. As always, this time that you and I spent together, it's the best part of my day. I'll be back tomorrow. We'll do it all over again. Have a great one. Later.